How are you all doing? My name is Lena Sutton of the Tutu Tango Show, and I wanted to share something with you. I'm dressed to the nines, as you say, as they would say. It's New Year's Eve, 2019, and I must say that I've been struggling a little bit with some procrastination because I am a perfectionist, as some of you know, and I've been really kind of struggling in terms of how I want to roll this out. We're rolling out some new things with the Tutu Tango Show, and I've been taking a class recently, and there was something that one of the instructors posed to us, and they asked us to, share with us how we got started doing the thing that we do, the thing that we love so much, the thing that is our passion and our life purpose. And I realized that as we now approach the 10-year anniversary of the Tutu Tango Show, that many of you may not know exactly how did Linda get into doing this work. It's a rather long story. And it's very appropriate based on kind of what the occasion of the day is. But I just wanted to share a little bit with you so that you can kind of get some insight about why I am so passionate about the work that I do, why it really is my life work. And so just wanted to share. It's so kind of interesting because I grew up in New York, and so now with the new Joker movie, there's all this highlight on this Joker stairs. Apparently, I haven't seen it, but there's a scene in the Joker where he's dancing down these stairs that are in the Bronx, New York. In Bronx, New York, it's the High Bridge neighborhood of the Bronx, New York. And I looked at those stairs in a particular photo. It was a photo feature in a magazine. I was like, oh, I know those stairs. I grew up on those stairs. I grew up playing on those stairs. And so that you kind of have a visual in your mind, because I actually grew up playing those. I was almost born on those stairs. But that's another story. I had to bring my mom in to tell that one. And I grew up in New York, and I was a little girl, and my parents were together, and I just know that the beginning of my story began on a note, on a kind of a different kind of note, and this is kind of early in my childhood. I just remember that my father, who's no longer with us, apparently according to my parents, he was very, very protective of me. So I was his little girl, and he was like super, super protective of me. And, apparently used to take me everywhere with him. He had this denim hat that he used to wear. And so he was into cars, and he was a mechanic, and rebuilt carburetors, worked for a carburetor company. And so I just remember us being really, really close. My mom said he used to hoist me on his shoulders and carry me everywhere, like we were inseparable. And I remember that he had this, like they say, this denim hat, and I kind of at a young age got a sense of approximately what time he would come home. I wouldn't say that I knew enough about numbers, and I had a sense of when he'd come home. So I would stand by the door and wait for, when I knew that he was going to be coming home from work, and I would kind of jump and dive into his arms like a missile and kind of head first into his stomach, and he would put his hat on my head and then hoist me up and then carry me around. So I kind of have definitely some strong memories about the denim hat. And I just remember that one day, I don't know all the particulars. I was young. I was maybe a little older than 3, not quite 4 years old. I was 3 years old. And I just remember going to the door and him not showing up at the time that I thought he should show up, that I knew that he would show up. And I was confused. And I went to the door, and I remember my mother trying to explain something to me. And I just remember for a day or two, a couple of days, going to the door at the time that I knew that he should be coming home, and him not coming home. And I remember there was a feeling and a sensation that I had as a 3-year-old girl that was the greatest pain I have ever experienced, even to this date, even with all that I've been through as an adult. Like, it was the greatest pain I ever felt. And I know what it is now, having, kind of grown up and become an adult, but it was heartbreak. And it was at the age of 3, I felt the most painful experience of my life, which was the heartbreak of realizing that my father wasn't going to be coming back. And I couldn't figure out the why of it. I couldn't figure out what went wrong. I couldn't figure out what happened, what I did wrong, what happened. And so I just remembered that pain. And I just remember kind of having an idea within myself to wanting to fix that and to want to make that right. Now, I was a pretty observant child, and so I had this kind of knack for observing the world around me and putting one and one together, putting 1 + 1 together, or 1 + 2 together, and kind of drawing my own childlike conclusions about what to do and what not to do, how to conduct myself and how not to conduct myself. But in that particular situation, and realizing that he wasn't coming back, and the literal pain, the sensation of pain I felt in that, there was something within me that wanted to figure out why and figure out how, what made that happen, so that I could make it right, or so that I could fix it. So this is kind of what started me in some ways, kind of in my gut of guts as a 3-year-old girl. Now, so much that happened after that, from, I had to share with that, I got proposed to at the age of 5, and it's all other stuff. And so but it's something that never left me. It was something that was always important to me. My mother later wound up getting married around the age of, when I was 5 years old, my mother got married to the gentleman that I now call my dad. But that was something that never left me, that feeling, that pain of heartbreak that I had as a 3-year-old, something that never left me, and kind of was a driving force to figure out how that happens as I got older, and how to fix it, or how to keep it from happening. So as you keep on going, it's like my little love holder, my little love pillow here. So, I continued on with my journey. I went as the oldest of 5, wanted to be the oldest of 5. Really, really awkward young lady, not at all coordinated, but still loved to dance. Wind up graduating from college, going to corporate, leaving corporate to follow my dreams and passions of becoming a dancer. And kind of found myself, by this time later, I was actually teaching dance at the university. So there was 2 universities that I was teaching at in North Carolina, in Charlotte, and I was teaching dance at one university and teaching dance in the physical education at another one. And on this particular day, I would walk across the campus from the Department of Dance building over to the faculty studio, and my specialization was African dance forms throughout the diaspora, so world dance forms throughout the world who had their roots in African dance or in African culture was kind of my specialty. And so that was kind of what I'd been teaching, and I was very, very successful in that, getting to perform and teach all over the region and here and abroad. And so, it was very exciting times. And this particular day, I saw a piece of paper that was kind of dancing and floating all the grass across the lawn in front of me. Now, if you know anything about Charlotte, North Carolina can be, parts of it can be pretty pristine. So litter is not something that you see a lot of in Charlotte, especially, there's a great deal of pride in the city. And so you don't see a lot of litter in certain areas. And so this one particularly stood out because it wasn't like it was like a piece of trash. It was like an entire piece of paper. And so it flitted. So I kind of scurried along to kind of capture it before it kind of got away from me. And it was a flyer. And it was like either a flyer that someone had picked up, just tried to put up, or had recently put up that had kind of gotten caught by the wind. And I saw that it was a flyer for Argentine tango lessons. Now, if you know anything about me, by that time, like I said, I was teaching dance, African dance throughout the diaspora. I was teaching and performing, studying 18 different dance forms. So dance was not unfamiliar to me, and dance is something, as my students would say, I dance for work, I dance for play, I just dance. That was kind of what I was known for at that time. And so I was like, And so, I took it, folded it up and put it in my dance bag and took it home. I was married at the time, and so took my husband and was like, "Hey, I'd like to try this," because tango is a partner dance. So we went to a couple lessons. He wasn't really feeling it, and so I kind of put it aside. A few months later in the winter season, he was traveling. I was still teaching back at home. And I just happened to go to the library and get a movie and stumble across a movie, picking up some movies to watch for around the new year. And, the first couple of weeks of the new year was my downtime before the high season of my dance, African dance. And I stumbled across a movie in the library called The Tango Lesson. So I saw that and it just kind of sparked my interest again. So I picked it up. I went home and I watched it and I saw Pablo Varone and Sarah Lee Potter doing their thing on that movie, and I was just blown away. It was one of the most beautiful romantic dances I had seen, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do it. I want to do that dance and I want to dance with that guy. And so I was like, I want to do this dance. And so started going to a couple of classes here and there. Still nothing serious, but was just very, very excited about playing around with the dance. And at the same time that I just was kind of starting to play around with dance, things started to go bad in my marriage and relationship. And at that time, I was doing everything I knew, all the conventional wisdom, all the tools that I had learned to use in terms of how to have a successful marriage, how to have a happy relationship, counseling, the tools, the books, and it just, nothing seemed to be working, and it led to a divorce. And I was devastated. I was devastated because a relationship and a marriage was something that had been important to me since I was 3 years old, and it was something that I really was important. It was something not even just intellectual about. There was something in my being that wanted to be married and knew that not only was I supposed to be that, but there was a right way to do it. There was a right way for it to be successful, for it to stay together, for a family to stay together, and so that a little girl would never have to experience the kind of heartbreak and heartache that I experienced as a little girl. Like, no little girl should have to experience that level of heartache and pain at such an early age. And so I was like, there had to be a better way. And here I wasn't successful, and I didn't make it happen. I was like, it was so tough. And so I just wasn't sure. I struggled with whether or not to just abandon an idea. I was using all of the conventional wisdoms, talk therapy, the books, the Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, like all these different tools I was attempting to use, and it was just like nothing was making it gel. Nothing was making it come in sync. I threw myself into my work and I started playing around more with tango. And so by this time I was, like I said, doing a lot with my work, doing more with my tango, and by this time I was actually studying. I had gone to Argentina to study tango, and I was at the International Congress, Congreso Internacional de Tango Argentina, CITA. I had gone down to Argentina, the mecca for Argentine tango, Buenos Aires, and it was at this huge event. There were dancers from all around the world dancing tango. And so here I was. The seasons are reversed, so it was the end of summer there, even though it was in February, March. And so I was there, and this one particular event that I'd gone to, and it was just so beautiful. It was just this beautiful architecture, this old Italian style architecture. And there's this big ballroom, and everyone's dressed so beautifully, and we had several hundred couples dancing on this floor, and it was just an extraordinary experience. It was because the older buildings didn't have AC or HVAC the way that we have now. It was a little muggy, and so I was definitely feeling like enjoying the evening, but it was just kind of a congestion on the floor. There was just a lot of people on the floor. You could sense, you could feel the people, you could feel the heat. It was kind of muggy, so you could start to sweat a little bit. And so it was just a beautiful experience, but the floor was packed. And so By that time, like I said, you could feel the congestion, you could feel the other bodies. Hopefully you didn't dance with anybody that bumped in somebody else, but you would have those moments that were like bumper cars. And so I decided to go to the ladies' room to kind of freshen up and cool off. Now they had a dress, when you go into the ladies' room, it's a little bit different there because you had this very large parlor and lounge area, kind of with all this antique furniture and the mirrors and things before you actually went into the restroom area. So you had that, and so there were all these ladies that were in there putting on makeup, freshening up their makeup, freshening up their hair, their clothes, adjusting their clothes, maybe changing, massaging their feet, changing their shoes and talking. And so as I was just kind of freshening myself up, I kind of overheard a couple of ladies having this conversation about this gentleman named Dave. And so as they were talking about this gentleman named Dave, like I heard a couple of women chime in, and so like all this buzz and this conversation around this guy named Dave that a couple of ladies had danced with, and it's like la 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 and about this and about the way he danced and the experience and whatever. And I just was like, kind of overhearing just like all this Dave whispering about Dave. And so, not meaning there's like all these questions, people asking like who, what does he look like, so all these things going on. So I just kind of wrote it off, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. You don't usually hear that in the ladies' room like that. So I went back onto the floor and kind of, was out there, and about an hour later, I was kind of standing up because it had gotten crowded. So I was in this area where the singles are at, and normally there's enough seating, but it was so crowded that there was a group of us standing. And so about kind of 2 body lengths away from me, kind of shoulder width over there was a gentleman standing beside me, and he kind of was a little bit taller gentleman, had some Asian features, and this navy blue blazer that was really fitted across the top of his shoulders, the broad shoulder, but a little bit wider in the waist than I thought for his frame. But a handsome gentleman, had his hair back into a ponytail, and he turns to me and he kind of gives me the cabeceo, which is the way the gentleman asked the lady to dance. And so I was like, okay, I gave him the response back, and so he leads me onto the floor, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Dave. What's your name?" And I'm going, okay. So like holding my composure, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder, is this the Dave that everybody's talking about in the ladies' room? So I was like, okay. So my name is Linda, and so he started, took me onto the floor, and he took me into the embrace to start dancing. And something happened in that moment. It was like the entire room dissolved and faded away. And it was like there was only 2 of us dancing. And I just was kind of perplexed by that because it was a very, very crowded room. You just could feel the congestion, but all of a sudden the congestion just melted away. And so we were dancing, and as we danced, it was just an interesting feeling that made me want to open my eyes, because I normally dance with my eyes closed. And so it made me want to open my eyes to check, because I was like, it doesn't feel like anybody's here. It's like, feel like just the 2 of us are dancing. And then about midway through the tandem of songs, then about the second song that I danced with him, there was about a moment where I felt like I could hear his thoughts. I felt like I knew what he was thinking. I felt like I knew what exactly he was going to do. And it was like that moment where it only felt like there was one person dancing. It was like I was with him, but it felt like it was just one person dancing, whether it was just me or whether it was just him. In that moment, it just felt like that. And it was just like a complete synergy. It was like I knew him in a different way. It was like I was inside of his head, inside of his thoughts. It was just like a knowing. It wasn't like I was hearing a train of thought. It was like I knew what he was going to do. I knew what he was going to lead. I knew where he was going to go. And I knew just I was there. Somehow I was just there. And it lasted about 45 seconds. And then I felt it start to fade away. And so we were still in sync with one another. But that kind of being, that level of connectedness started to fade away. And so we got the 3 songs, and it wound up being a 4-song tanda because we thought it was only 3. So we danced the last song, and I walked off he walked me off the dance floor and took me back to the place where I was, and something just stuck with me. in terms of that moment. And that moment just would not leave me. That moment and the significance of it would not leave me. And so I kind of reflected on it, thought about it, wrote about it for the rest of the remainder of my trip. But then there was a moment when I kind of stepped away from it and got into a quiet over a breakfast and journaling, and I realized that, oh my goodness, there is this thing where they say in tango, two become one. It takes two to tango, but there's a moment in tango where two to become one. And it was kind of a saying that you heard. And I realized that, oh my gosh, it wasn't just a saying. Like when they say that in tango, two become one, it wasn't just like a metaphor. It wasn't just a cliche. It was actually born out of an experience that people had. Like people were having this experience where they were experiencing the two becoming one in tango. And so the saying was born out of that experience because I had had that experience. And then it made me think. I had heard in church that in marriage and in relationship, two are supposed to become one, two become one flesh. And I realized that there was a connection between the two. But over here where it said in two become one flesh, where I kind of understood that kind of metaphorically and ethereal, over here I had an experience, and I wondered, what if there was a science? What if there was a way that you could arrive at this thing that we know in partnership where they say two become one flesh? What if there was a way to arrive at it through this experience? And not only have this experience, but what if there was a way to take that 45-second experience that I have and draw it out to where it would be more than just a few seconds, but a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, a few years, the rest of my life? What if you could extend that experience? And the light bulb just went off, and I knew that there was something there. I knew that there was a connection. I knew that there was something to be found in this experience over here, this partnership experience over here, that could be used to create this experience over here. And when I had that discovery, I knew I had discovered something, and I was off to the races. I had been since I was 3 years old, trying to find a way to fix it, trying to find a way to make it right, trying to find a way that families could stay together, that there was some way to keep it all together, there was some way for it to remain one. And I had an insight now, and I was determined that I was going to find the answers and unlock those secrets. I was determined to unlock those secrets. So here I was discovering, having this major life insight, like OMG, something that I had been searching for and had gotten a glimpse, not only of the answer, but the glimpse of the experience. So I knew that it was possible because I had experienced it. And so I was like, okay, now what am I going to do now? I've got this information. So I had made up my mind that my goal, even though I was doing all these other dance forms, that I was going to give a new level of focus and energy in this particular dance form and unlocking the secrets and discovering them for myself, but not only for myself, but for discovering them for others and sharing those tips, those tools, those secrets, that technique with others. So I didn't have it all figured out, and so I just mapped out a plan. I was like, I'm going to study tango. I'm going to master tango. I'm going to learn both sides of the dance, what it means to lead and follow, and I'm going to study every nuance of it and figure it out. I'm going to figure it out somehow. And so I was off to the races, and I started. That was my plan. I was like, okay, I was going to master it because I knew how to teach. I had taken many dance forms and dissected them and pulled them apart, and not only understood them viscerally within my body, but I had developed a skill and talent for how to translate that to others. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm here to do. Since I was 3, I've been on this mission to figure it out, and now I had an insight that I was going to use to figure this out. And so I continued, and I stumbled through it, and I was still trying to figure it out, and I tried to apply, and things didn't work, and tried to apply again, and things didn't work, and it was just like I kept running into wall after wall. I was still trying to apply the skills and still having relationship challenges. I was using the physical techniques. In this process, I got married again, and was still trying to figure it out. And I was like, okay, I think I've got the insights, and I'd gotten them, and that ended in divorce too, and I was crushed. I was crushed after the second divorce, at a level that I didn't even think that I would recover from. I didn't think that I would recover from, because by this time I had started teaching and I was sharing and I was getting results for other people, and I was going through the process. And so I understood the mastering of the body. And then after, one breakdown, then I realized that it's okay, not just mastering the body, but there are other elements to a master. And so I was like, well, maybe I didn't figure it out. Maybe I'm not going to figure it out. And it wasn't until one final phase that I got the rest of the answer. And the surprising thing is that just as I was recovering from the second divorce and actually getting some synergy, my father passed away. And in that process of grieving and learning about that process of him, kind of brought things full circle. And it gave me the last of the answers that I needed in that recovery process of healing from the loss of him, that gave me the rest of the answers that I needed in order to complete the system prepared for my students. And so it was like I'm still on this journey, and I'm still on this journey of finding the partner, because there's one part system, and then the other part is finding a partner who is willing to commit to being in partnership with you. But I've worked with thousands of couples now at this point in terms of training them. One of my favorite was a training course that I did in San Diego, where I got to work with 650 couples all at once at a relationship seminar. And so, just getting results for others, I have just a passion for it, but really kind of understanding that it not only takes two to tango, but it takes you to tango is the beginning for you of the process. And it was the beginning of the next phase of this journey for me. And so that's why I'm so passionate about tango, because tango has been more than just about me having my own personal happily ever after, but also I'm on a mission to share these tools and these skills that I know work in terms of creating partnership, and how do you create a breathtaking partnership on the dance floor, and how you can use that same step-by-step process and system to create a breathtaking performance within your relationship every single day.